Hey everybody, Paul Angelo here. Welcome to another field trip. We haven't done these in a while. So let's talk about an abandoned area of psychology. An area of psychology that has been neglected, that has not seen proper focus and proper understanding. And for men especially, for gay men especially. Have you heard people say that a man's best friend is his dog? Have you heard that before? I've heard that before many times, that a man's best friend is his dog. And I thought about that, and then I learned about denial and disassociation, and I came to a conclusion that a man's best friend is a state of denial, not a dog. And that men enter into states of denial all the time. In fact, we live in states that are a mixture of denial and disassociation. Denial and disassociation. And that's why so many of us are in such a different space in terms of understanding the world, understanding ourselves. It's because there's no flow anymore, no flow of consciousness. Ego is preoccupied with maintaining its position as opposed to enabling movement. And that's why denial and disassociation are very important states of being that a man has to understand, because you have to understand where in your life you are in a state of denial. And you definitely are in probably like 30 places or more, a total state of denial. And that denial is like we can imagine kind of like a circle. And this circle represents an attempt to understand reality and compartmentalize it and kind of like create a framework. But often these frameworks are not correct, and that's why we call them states of denial. An incorrect framework of understanding of yourself or the world, and you believe that this is the way it is. And so understanding how denial works and understanding how disassociation works is very important for our mental health and for our success as men. And this is something that I haven't heard anybody talk about. I mean, a perfect example of state of denial is our approach to sexuality. It's a total state of denial. Absolute total state of denial. And then when you can see the denial, you live in a state of disassociation. So disassociation is a little bit deeper than just denial. So disassociation is an embodied state of denial, where no matter how you talk to the person, not only their psychology cannot reach the openness level to understand what you're saying, but their body feels really icky about the subject that you're talking about. And so that's why today in the world, you can't convince anybody of anything anymore, because people are rooted in their state of denial and disassociation to such a degree that they don't budge unless suffering or some major drama happens. And unfortunately, this is why those are the best lessons for men, where they come out of denial and the disassociation because they're forced to come out of it. They get cancer, so with health, something bad happens because they thought they would get away with eating fried chicken all the time and fried cheeseburgers and French fries and using all kinds of oils that are cancerogenic. And one day they get cancer and maybe then they stop. But before that, when somebody says that those oils cause cancer, when somebody said that 100 times, it doesn't reach. That person has to be diagnosed with cancer to be willing to come out of denial. And this is the weakness of masculinity. Weakness is not really weak, it's the side effect of being a lone wolf, where the states of denial last so much longer and the state of disassociations are deeper when we are by ourselves, lone wolves or free agents, men who are stuck in believing that by themselves they're going to be successful, or by themselves their life is going to be happy. No, all that's going to happen is they're going to freeze in their state of denial and stay there for, say, 10 years longer than someone who can just flow right through it by the virtue of having friends and close connections with many other people that can point it out to that person. So you see, states of denial and disassociation are outcomes of alienation and outcomes of not being able to have long-term healthy relationships. That's why you see people that are in relationships, they're very different than people that are not in relationships. People that are in relationships, they come out of state of denial more often and more frequently. They understand themselves, to recognize that there has to be movement, there has to be flow. You cannot be stuck in any expectation, any specific place. You have to be movable. And people that are not in relationships, they're usually people that are in a state of deeper denial, borderline disassociation, and their impulses, especially sexual impulses, are kind of like frozen up to such a degree that they are very rigid, and there's no openness and there's no open range about sexuality anymore. Sexual compatibility is the outcome of all of this, the strong desire to be sexually happy immediately. This is kind of like state of denial and disassociation that has been embodied into arousal. So longer term, we as men have to become aware of how our minds are made really perfectly for an easy entry into states of denial and disassociation. And how our job, given all of this, is to train ourselves to enter into productive states of denial and productive states of disassociation. So we are then utilizing our own mental engine that creates denial and disassociation, but we are doing it towards the positive as opposed to towards the negative. And this is, my friends, when we enter into really advanced personal development areas where you are creating a disassociation intentionally that takes you further, takes you higher. And you're creating a state of denial intentionally about something that really matters, not about something that's trivial, but something that matters in a productive way. In other words, state of denial that dissolves fear, or states of denial that dissolve second guessing or negative internal dialogue. So I know I'm talking in abstract terms here, but we can utilize our mental engine to the benefit, especially when it comes to the engine of denial and disassociation. We see this with sexuality the easiest way, where our arousal often is directed towards people that ultimately mistreat us, or people with whom more aggressive sexuality is required for that arousal to be maintained. So these are forms of disassociation, because in reality, that behavior should never occur. We should always be respectful, loving, caring, authentic with each other at all times, 100% of the time. So when we give ourselves a break and enter into these volatile, more exotic ways of acting out sexuality, these are violations of the human process, and they are ways of creating a disassociation or creating a denial. Because the more you do it, the more you give yourself permission to do it, eventually it becomes your world. So in our pursuits for love and relationships, we cannot stay in denial, especially dysfunctional denial, nor a disassociation, especially disassociation about sexuality. And it is helpful to open up these areas of psychology to your understanding, because coaches and trainers, they skip this, especially when it comes to men, because a lot of coaching programs are just designed for people in general. They're not designed for men specifically. So men have much reduced understanding of how denial and disassociation is their everyday practice in their life, and how to recognize where that denial is dysfunctional, and also how to create a positive, productive state of denial, especially in relationship to fear, and especially in relationship to courage and living a life of virtue. These are the productive states of denial, the ascension-based processes. But the mechanism is still the same. It's still a fictitious world, it's still a fantasy world, but it's a productive fantasy. It's a productive denial. It's a productive disassociation, not a dysfunctional sexual fantasy that you know hurts you all the time, but imagine the opposite, a sexual fantasy that you can actually have and that helps you become better as a person. So we are now talking about a nuanced area of psychology for men. This doesn't appear the same way for women. Women are not as compartmentalized in their thinking as men are. And so for this reason, you should be very curious about how denial works and how disassociation works. It's kind of like the concepts of narcissism and trauma bonding. These are really important. Like, you really have to study that now, because a lot of people are under the influence of those states, narcissism and trauma bonding. Here, on a more deeper level, it's the disassociation and the denial. If you can understand these 4 concepts, narcissism and trauma bonding, and then denial and disassociation, you're going to notice so many things in society that previously you wouldn't notice, because you recognize why there's so much irrationality everywhere. Why people are going crazy, basically. Because everybody is in a state of denial and disassociation and wrapped around narcissistic abuse and trauma bonding and acting it out. And now you begin to understand where this society is going to. You're going to understand why you have to protect yourself from all of that, because it destroys everyone. So I am just briefly talking about these areas here to invite you into the understanding of them, because you will have to understand them. This is the current reality in which we live, a very dysfunctional social space. And once you understand why it's dysfunctional and how it's dysfunctional, then you're able to really break through and interact with people that are ready for love, ready for relationships, that are somewhat functional. I mean, everybody has been affected by this, myself included. So not most people are kind of fucked up a little bit, but at least somewhat functional, so that we can be rational about each other, so that we're not subjected to irrationality to a level that every time we try, nothing works. And that's why I'm talking about this, because for people that are in a state of denial, in a state of disassociation, nothing works. And they always say, oh, it's somebody else. No. It's probably those states of denial. There are too many of them, or too many states of disassociation, embodiment of strange psychological states into your arousal and sexuality. That is really the problem. Okay, my friends, we're going to wrap this up. The sun is about to set. I'm looking over the mountains here. I'm going to turn around and show you. So there's the sun over there. It's really bright. Thank you for listening. For more videos like these, please visit my website at paulangelo.com. Also, those of you who are ready for a transformation, who are ready to meet men in a productive, loving way, come join us at the Big Gay Family Social Program. Visit the website biggayfamily.com. Okay, my friends, until we talk next, as always, love for love, honor for honor. I will fight for you when you fight for me and each other. And this is our collective social contract. Okay, my friends, signing off. I'll see you soon.